Setting, some random evening in late 2013, early 2014, in a Walmart parking lot in Toledo, Ohio.
Oh, boy.
I meet my good friend RJ, leaving my pride and joy, a 2002 Jeep Wrangler known as Old Blue, behind. As we made our way east to Cleveland with some other fella whose name I don't remember and who I was not personally acquainted with. RJ was DJing somewhere in a city I best knew for Craig Elo and a famous fire on its river. The early portion of the night goes along fine. We grab some food, check out the downtown, yada yada. DJ Real Juicy then goes to DJ at a very high-end, hoity-toity club, and suddenly I'm all alone in this club that is rapidly getting more packed and more loud, which is fun if you aren't alone, still mostly sober, and in general starting to see that phase of your life pass by. So I settle in at the bar with TVs and my phone, fully prepared to quietly get loaded, having an entirely different night than everyone around me. When out of the mist of this club, a red-headed, sharp-dressed man comes up to me and whispers in my ear, "Are you RJ's friend? Follow me." This man, I would come to learn, was one Jesse Howells. He takes me to a secondary portion of the club, gets me a drink, introduces me to others, and ensures the rest of my evening in the club was very enjoyable. As the place empties out and Juice's set ends, I think to myself, that was a great night. But hold up. It turns out a night in Cleveland with Jesse Howells doesn't end when the club closes.
Uh-oh.
Between a pukin' rally and an apartment visited by the likes of Shaq and Mark Cuban, a casino trip that got stupid hot before going crazy cold, a visit to a New York delicatessen in the middle of Cleveland, and who knows what else that I don't remember, I had grown to realize that Cleveland was in fact the most fun city in the world if you do it right. Eventually, sometime after the sun was up, RJ and I made our way back to the hotel we didn't end up staying in, to find the third guy from our group passed out in bed. Fortunately for us, he was then fully capable of driving us back to Toledo, where we parted, each going back to our respective cities, ready to scheme our next eventful trip together. I'll never forget that night, but one aspect I will always remember was the dude that went out of his way to pull me in and show me how they do it in the 216. And with that said, I'd like to welcome into the show the legend himself, Jesse Howells. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm great. There's no better intro, man. That warms the heart. I'll tell you that.
I will just tell you, I appreciate.
brought a tear to my eye. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, that's the experience I hope to give everybody when they come to visit.
That is absolutely how I felt. It was amazing. You had no idea who I was, but you brought me in and you showed me a really good time, and it is a night that I have not forgotten since.
The short story around it, it was great. I miss those nights. Pulling together, DJing, stuff like that. The condo, the studio, the after hours. I mean, we really had some great nights there. Real Juicy can attest.
Yeah. So you were saying this.
I only know you as Real Juicy.
Of course,
I can't even say it as Ryan with the straight face.
It was weird when it was in the email.
Doesn't feel right. Yeah. Hi, Ryan. Yeah.
So why don't you give the audience a little background on how you've come to know us?
Ryan and I go way back with Marcus, like I said, and he's due in actually within the next hour. We'll be probably going to the casino tonight. Started off with DJing, moved. I've always done that. I've always had a lot of passion projects around DJing, poker, extracurricular types of things that challenge the mind and body and otherwise. So, my background is in commercial real estate. For the same period of time, I've been heavily in construction, development, things of that nature. If you look at some of the old ESPN videos, stuff like that, it's, they talk about me working from family business, being CFO of our family companies and things of that nature. So, the condo you guys came to visit, we developed that building on Cleveland's Public Square, the Park Building, cool project. We've since, my wife and I lived there for 12 years. We've since actually moved across the street into the Terminal Tower, which sits above the casino. So it's pretty convenient, just elevator ride down in your sandals. It's pretty awesome.
When we visited, you were just across the street from the casino, right?
Now I don't have to leave the building.
Yeah, it's even better. It's like in a bathrobe. Upgrade.
I'll Big Lebowski the shit out of that place. Yeah, they all,
remind me
local spot.
What property is it?
It's a Harrah's, right?
Is it? Yeah.
So no, it's changed a couple times. When it opened, it was owned by Dan Gilbert, owner of the Cavs. Sure. So that was Bedrock, like their development entity. So, and then Dan Gilbert amongst his people, like they owned it, had it operated by Caesars, which was a horseshoe brand. So that's what it came out of the gate as. So when you were down there playing craps, you're doing whatever, like we were getting Caesars odds. I mean, we'd sit there at the craps table with a $10 minimum bet and 100 times odds. I mean, the only place you really get that or used to was like O'Shea's in Vegas or wherever, where you can go grind, get your theoretical up, and we would play. I mean, shit, Marcus and I would sit at the craps table for 48 hours straight and literally have diamond status in 2 days, and then it was just up from there. And, you could realistically do that with only losing like 2-3 grand and being top tier status. And granted, like we're a regional market, so we probably got like much better comps than you would if you were like a Vegas regular. All the Vegas people would always complain about how they could never make status. And then like we would be at Horseshoe just banging out comps, go out to Vegas and the locals are just like, who are you? And you're coming to all of our lounges, you're drinking all of our free drinks and you're getting taken care of. No, you don't pay for hotel rooms. They're giving you rides from the airport. It's like that. I miss because now it's a Jack brand here in Cleveland, and Dan Gilbert actually like retained ownership of the property, and he leases it back to about like 25 guys in-house that he sold the casino to. And so, they've done some really good things. They put in a new poker room. They got a sports book down there. Like there's certainly more offerings, if you will. Yeah. But when you squeeze it that tight and you got 25 guys hands in the pot. Yeah. You're getting they're tightening the slots, they're tightening it all up. They're putting a Starbucks in. It's a $14 grande, mocha cappuccino. Like, come on.
And for the listening audience, the casino you're referencing is downtown Cleveland. It's close, isn't it? Right by the arena.
It is, and that's what makes it very accessible for our sports book is fantastic. I mean, we got all the big screens. It's on the first floor. You walk out the door and you go straight to the casino, and they have a whole other sports book in the casino that I believe, if memory serves, is run by MGM. And then obviously like Jack has their own book, and then there's several other licenses in the state of Ohio that have got sold to bar owners and people that can put in like FanDuel kiosks and what have you. I mean, it's in my personal opinion, I look at the corporate aspect of it and I'm like, okay, well, if you're trying to squeeze any more growth out of your company, like the obvious trajectory is tripling down on your sports book, because you're reaching a much larger audience. You have apps, you have geofencing, you have ways to police it, and it's policing it to make sure the right people get the right tax dollars. So that's all it is geofencing for taxes, effectively.
Right. To follow up on kind of what you were saying there, as far as, so for the audience, so you're located in the building that houses the casino. So you literally live above the casino, correct?
Which is downtown Cleveland.
Right downtown Cleveland.
Like the ballpark's there, the arena's there. It's pretty neat.
It's amazing. And then you've got the entertainment district.
The entertainment district. Yeah, 6th Street, is that right? 6th Street was where?
6th Street.
Yeah.
To follow up on your commentary about you're in real estate, you're still actively DJing, correct?
About 2-3 times a month, yeah. I used to DJ 2-3 times a week, and the cash was just really too hard to turn down. And then, as things kind of progress, life progresses, and I mean, I'm 40. I just turned 40, so I'm not, I don't want to be out till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, getting paid at 3, home in bed by 4. It's like, I can't do that.
I heard that.
This guy is going through that stage of his life.
It's just, it takes so many years to get good. Then once you get good, it's time to hang it up. And it's like, it's just so hard for it all to come together. Like, some people have the talent first. Some people have the business acumen first. Some people have the relationship first. And then, but by the time it all kind of congeals and comes together, and your marketing's on fire, and your mixtapes are great, and you're dropping whatever, and you're producing stuff, and now you're DJing, and now you're running around. It's like, it takes a very long time to get that good.
Right. And people think it takes a week. But yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's what
they
it
see
looks
like one
like.
TikTok video and it's like, dude, I just saw you chop it up for like 2 minutes. It took you like 45 minutes to film that. And you like train wrecked the shit out of every single clip leading up to it. Like,
Well, I've somewhat decided, like, the first time, maybe it's not my daughter, but someone that I recognize from her class walks into the bar. If I'm still there, I'm just going to shut down the music and leave. Be like, that's it, guys. That's all, folks.
You're
I'm
going to be
retired.
really mad when she's 14 and in the bar.
right, next week.
That'll throw you into retirement real quick. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
get in the car. We got some talking to do.
How long have you been DJing, Jesse?
So since college, really, I mean, like I got these Stanton turntables back when I was like in college and they were like belt driven. And I mean, you couldn't beat match to save your life. I mean, it was just like, you know, you hit the button. It's like, you know, and then I would play like 80s rock, like 70s and 80s rock, like for, you know, this blue collar crowd that would come through Bowling Green. So I went to school in like Bowling Green, you know, farm country, what have you, like some good old boys. And I went in on Wednesday nights. And one of the best nights ever was when my dad came and showed up, like with my buddy Timmy Ray, and like they just came into the front door and it like surprised me out of nowhere on a Wednesday night in Bowling Green, one of my first DJ gigs. And I'm just playing tunes, and you know how it is. You're in the zone. It feels good being able to play what you want, whatever. It was such a vibe. And then, you know, fast forward, I did that casually for 10 years. Opened up for guys through help Marcus with these parties and bringing people into town. And it's, you know, Ryan would show up, the real talent, and you know, put us all to shame. We just
get
be
loaded.
Like our minds are blown. Yeah, we're like, oh my gosh, this fall. How did he do this?
Another bottle, please.
Yeah. Hey, it was crunk.
It was crunk, yeah.
Yeah, we had a riot. And then fast forward to DJing, and I just kind of caught my own groove. I DJ a lot of house music now. I'm at Lago down in the flats in Cleveland here. We have the largest patio in Cleveland. It's gorgeous. You feel the awesome air blowing off the lake in the summertime, and it's just like it's breezy, it's vibey, it's a lot of house heads there. So
that's cool.
So we vibe some long format stuff. It's like I only DJ 2, 3, maybe 4 times a month now, but when I do, it's a 4-hour long format set.
That's cool.
We're enjoying ourselves.
That's a good vibe. I don't know. It kind of smells like a road trip, guys.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm in.
All right.
Come through.
So let's talk about how you like first got into gambling.
Okay, so Bowling Green, I was playing $20 tournaments in college, and you know, and that was a big buy, you know, and we get about 20 guys, you know, 400 in the middle, and somebody gets like $100 for first, and then kind of waterfalls from there, but kind of a big score on a, you know, random afternoon when you're a college student.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick here. You're in college 2002 to 2006 era?
Yeah, 01 to 05. Yeah.
Okay, so we were 2002 to 2006 era-ish, you know, in college as well. And we were just having the same conversation about poker and the explosion of poker on ESPN and, you know, being a part of that while we were in our college years. And I think the experience you probably had on Bowling Green, the experience I had at Illinois or Bradley or Southern Illinois is translatable for our age group to every university across the country at that point in time.
That little window of time, right?
Those dorm games you would have where you'd get everyone together, apartment games, those were everywhere at that time. And our age group of college age kids was, boom, core target market number one. It was a pretty cool time if you were into it.
It was fantastic. Those games were amazing. Those online games were so silly.
Oh my God.
We would sit there, we'd be grinding together, like, and not like in the sense of like telling each other how to play or like, you know, multi-accounting or anything like cheating wise. It was just like we were over each other's shoulder when somebody would go deep and we'd be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then I remember my one dude was on Paradise Poker, never forget. And he piled it in with, you know, the top pocket, whatever, kings over queens. And then it came out like queen, whatever, like queen, king or something. You had the most ridiculous run, you know, seeing kind of how the RNGs are now, like relative to kind of the stuff that I like literally saw in person back then. I'm like, there was definitely some shady ass shit for sure. Like, Like they're never giving my buddy Matt Sheets like in Bowling Green a trip to the Bahamas. Like they'll give him second and like 10 grand, but he's never getting like the 100K first place prize with the 50K,
Right.
like, 25K buy-in, all expense paid bullshit. Like it's never happened.
Right.
So it just, we fought, like we battled. I mean, I remember, dude, I tracked in spreadsheets. Like that was at a time where I was so frustrated with the reporting. I didn't know where I was at. And like, I mean, I knew where I was at online because I would be like, entered the sit and go, $10 buy-in. I just won $50, blah, 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 onto the next, and whatever I netted out, just know I was a winning player. But like, it was easy when it was like on screen, whatever. But then when you start playing live and you're trying to like blend like all your win rates between, I just want to break out tournament versus live, and what did I do over the past 3 months as opposed to what did I do over the past year, blah blah blah. So there was really no like good reporting software. And then I tried to create an app with a guy that did something with some BlackBerry technology or something back in the day. I don't know, some kind of JavaScript. I don't even know. But like I basically I wrote it all out. I showed him my spreadsheets. I'm like, this is what I'm trying to do, like real time. And this was like before apps. This is when people were talking about like iPhones being like the next thing. Before you know it, we're gonna be able to take our picture at the same time, a video. Yeah. We all grew up in that era.
Right.
Like that's where like we have that really crazy like decade generation of like a lot of things changed and very quickly. So now I use, long story short, Poker Income. And Poker Income, I'm at the table. I hit start right when I start my game, how much I bought in for, what I cash out for, and what have you. And it's just, it's a beautiful tool. And then I can export into Excel. So
yeah, so that's how you track your bankroll and your play and the time at the table and all that, right?
100%. Because in poker, just like everything else, you're playing for an hourly. I mean, it's just, it's all fundamentally based in expected value, and it all distills down to an hourly. I mean, if I play the highest level that I'm capable of in people that I can beat, my expected hourly is somewhere between $60 and $80 an hour. If I'm being honest with myself, I could probably beat up the game for $100 an hour, but let's face it, we don't bring our A game every time.
Sure. Yeah.
So let me ask this. You talk about early days playing live with friends and playing online. Has that been a consistent mix for you throughout your poker career where you're playing live and online, or have you adjusted in some way?
I used to be really solid, I would say, at, if you're talking about like expectation versus reality, like my sit and goes in the early days were great. Online poker adjusted, so like the skill level went up like exponentially, like so fast with all the tools and everything, even 15 years ago. That was like Isildur and Phil Ivey and Patrick Antonius and all those guys playing on full tilt. And I know that money was funny, but like at the end of the day, I mean, those guys were playing like the epitome of nosebleeds and fearlessly, and was like an exponential like move in the game.
Real quick,
I could never keep up with that.
When you say sit and go, for the audience, not for me.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit more there? What you're talking about?
So SNG is like a short way to say sit and go for like online poker tournaments, which is basically just like, a single table or less, like 9 or 10 handed or less. And you're just trying to beat that table. So, your typical payout is 3 out of 9 people, 3 out of 10 people, like in a single table. So
I remember these now. I remember playing these. Now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so you're trying to cash a third of the time, but you're basically just trying to be better than like over half the field, and just kind of crush them and pick better spots and what have you. And you're playing like 4 of them at a time, and you're doing that every half hour. So it's like I'm playing like eight tournaments an hour practically. It's like, it was stupid, but that's the only way you can really pick up real volume, and you get some pretty standard spots. Now MTTs are multi-table tournaments, so that's where you have like multiple tables, so you could have 60 people in a tournament. Now now they might be paying the top 6 to 10 places, and prize pool's bigger, but your chance of winning first is a lot harder. So
yeah, gotcha. So it's kind of like the 10-man DFS league compared to like the 100-man compared to the 3,000. Yeah,
this is totally 100%. Translatable to DFS. Okay.
Oh, it's so similar in terms of betting strategy, because like we all bet effectively in units. I mean, it's just how many, we call them buy-ins, you call them units in sports. It's just a different language, but it's the same. It's effectively the same thing.
Right. So what is your gambling look like then today? Like, what is your present day gambling style?
No, it's casual. I mean, I'm what I consider, like a recreational player at this point. I consider myself semi-professional at one point because over half my income was like derived from poker. So, when you're tonight, if I go down with Marcus and I lose like a few $100, I'd be like sick to my stomach, if I'm being honest. Like, but like in the past, I could lose 5, 6, 7,000 in a day. It's just a different mindset. Like I'm not grinding every day to realize my expectation. So therefore, if I'm only playing if I only have so many hours a year to dedicate to poker, like I'm going to play bigger events that, in a shorter period of time, and I'm going to kind of condense it to where I can focus on only poker. Because if you're sitting at the poker table and you're thinking about like, oh shit, I got to get this report out for my job or whatever, like you're never going to make good decisions. I'm sorry. Like if you try to work a job and play poker, your brain can only make so many decisions a day. And you learn that over time. It's like, when you've at least now, I'm 40, I hope I would know, but at this point, but like when your brain starts making like bad decisions, like, you get that little voice and you're like, I'm good on that last drink, or I'm good on that, like I got to go home. Because if I turn the corner, I'm not coming home till 6 a.m.
Right.
Hey, Jesse, I got a quick question. When you talk about going from college games to the dorm games to the online poker, where do you think the moment happened for you when that light went off, where you were like, hey, I'm really good at this. Like I can take my game to the next level and do this professionally or semi-professionally and be successful at it?
So that was my first trip to Baltimore, basically. And it was in 2014. And, all my results are public. You can just Google Jesse Howells, Hendon Mob, whatever. You could see like all the stuff that I've at least cashed in publicly. And I remember I was sitting, it's funny you mention that. Really good question, by the way. The Lincoln Tap House, it's no longer open, but it was a place that we used to hang out. Friends and family come to town, grab a bite to eat, drink, whatever. They had a bunch of draft beer. It was cool. Sitting there, some of the bartenders were like, Jess, what are you doing this weekend? I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking about going and playing this $1,600 WSOP event in Baltimore. You guys want a piece? Because we're all, working. I'm DJing, they're bartending, we're all making a couple $100 a night. Yeah, I'll throw like $100 at it. I'll throw $100 at it, whatever. So I raised like probably $500-600 at the bar.
That's fantastic.
Put up the other like $1,000 myself. Drove out to Baltimore. Over 600 entrants, if I recall. Finished like 20 something, 26th or something, something like that, 23rd. I don't know. It was at that point I was playing against Phil Ivey. I had my buddy Chuck out there with me. A lot of stories about him. He's a good dude. And I remember Chuck had Phil Hellmuth. Sorry, did I say Phil Ivey or Phil Hellmuth? I meant Phil Hellmuth. So Phil Hellmuth was out there at Baltimore, and my buddy Chuck was at the table. And Chuck, this dude would run up the biggest stacks. I don't even know how he did it. He would just spin it up, man. He would just spin it up. And Phil Hellmuth could not get a read on him. And he was just like, at the end of the one break, he was like, will you go to dinner with me and my wife? Like, I just need to pick your brain. And he's like, no, I'm here with my buddy Jesse. We're gonna go. We got plans for dinner. Turns down Phil Hellmuth for dinner to hang out, and I remember my buddy Ahmad was with me too. And man, he was so mad because that was the first time I made it deep in like a really big event. And I think first was like, I don't know, a couple $100,000 or something. So I was like knocking on the door of well into the six figures. And Ahmad he went off. He was gambling cash games, and I got knocked out of the tournament. And he's like, Jesse, I feel so bad. He's like, had I just been there with you, I would have been able to coach you. I've been deep in this. He's like, I can't believe. And I made a horrible, me and this dude have been battling it out all day, right? And I had his number, and I was looking him up with small pairs and whatever. I had a pretty good read on him. And then the tables changed, and then he wound up being, to my left. And then in hindsight, obviously I knew how he was playing against me shorthanded. And then we went to a full table. My brain just didn't adjust. And I open raise with king queen, which is, okay, fine. And then he just jams 15 bigs, and I have 15 bigs, and I take it as he's trying to intimidate me. But what I wasn't thinking about is he just jammed into 3 or 4 other blind hands, and he would never do that without a really good hand, just fundamentally. And so I should have known to just muck the king queen, live to fight another day. But no, my ego, I call I'm running you down. Because honestly, you're not like, when you're in the middle of the game, like you're not thinking about like first place money or if I ladder up. I mean, like there's those considerations like deep in the tournament, what we call like independent chip modeling, where every chip has a value. But I mean, in that situation, it was just like primal, you know, you get these like reads and it's like, and he had ace king, of course, and no queen, and I bust out and it's like, whatever. But I mean, that, to answer your question, I mean, that's when I knew that, like, I knew I made a mistake, number one. And number two, if you can't admit that to yourself, you're never going to get any better, because guys will walk out of there convincing themselves that they're not breaking it down, right? Number one, or that was number two. But, you know, number three, I knew I belonged. I was there, you know, and I was knocking on the door, and there's no better feeling than just being that close to a big score.
That's awesome.
So from there, is that the point when you decided to start traveling out to Vegas for the World Series of Poker, or what made, so just real quick for the audience, one of the reasons we're so excited to have you on this week in particular, you're about to travel out to Vegas, correct, for the 2023 World Series of Poker?
Correct.
Okay.
18 days, yeah.
So
I'm going to be there for 18 days, yeah.
That is extremely exciting. Can you give us a little bit of information on your history with the World Series of Poker then?
Right. So let's go back to the Lincoln Park Tap House. So the following year, right, I cashed this tournament. I'm like, I belong.
So you bring cash back for everybody, right? Like,
oh yeah, I bring cash back. Bar's happy. Everybody's happy.
That's great.
We're all like, woo! You know, I cashed. We all made money. They were ecstatic because they expected like nothing. They're like, this dude's gonna drive out to Baltimore, play a poker tournament. He's not coming back with shit. He's just going there to party.
We'll never see him again.
Sorry, guys, I lost.
So that being the sentiment, yeah, everybody was pretty happy when I came back with money. But you know how we do. We're hospitable people. We chopped it up. And a year later, you know, WSOP's coming around. My wife's, my father-in-law, his boss comes in with his father. And, you know, they bring the private jet in to go see the Browns. And they're very, very well-to-do insurance guy. He's since moved on to some bigger, like, you know, capital market group. But nonetheless, at the time, you know, we were all gambling quite a bit. We'd craps tables and hung out. I mean, we're talking about a guy that brings, you know, 10,000 plus to the craps table. So it's, you know, he's a gambler. His father loves sports. I'll leave it at that. But Joe and Joe, they sit down with me at Lincoln Tap House. They're like, so you went pretty deep in that Baltimore one, huh? Oh, you think you got it in you? What's the main event? I'm like 10,000. Like, I'm like, you know, I've always looked for a backer for it. Like, I love that. And that was actually my first backing relationship. And they were like, you know what? We're sending you out there. Let us know what you need and whatever. And I was like, you know, 15,000 will do it. 10K for the main, 5,000 in some, you know, saver events, as I call them, you know, just to at least kind of lick your wounds if you swing and miss at the main. And we ran deep. We finished 198th place out of 6,420 players in 2015. Wow. So that's when I really knew I belonged.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I say this in front of my wife and whatever, but I mean, it was truly like the best day of my life. And she was there with it and watching through the camera. And granted, like, I mean, I can tell you about our Vegas wedding. It was fantastic. And that was, I mean, those two are literally, both of the two best experiences in my life are rooted in Vegas. Like me getting married at the JW Marriott, the most beautiful grounds in Vegas, with a brunch reception, just so that my wife could say her vows and go right to the craps table. And then WSOP final, like making it to day 5 of the main event, which is like, you know, at day 7, they're playing down to like practically like, you know, the last 2 tables. I mean, it's like, you know, to make it that far against the best players in the world for like in a freeze out, like you can't rebuy to the main event. You buy in for $10,000 and you're in for $10,000. There's no re-entry, you know, and that's where, you know, I don't know. It's just so prestigious. It's such a great tournament. Every hometown hero's there. Every asshole you've ever met at in your home game that wins all the time. You know what I mean? That shows up there and thinks he can beat everybody. Who's this?
Hey,
Marcus
what's up, bud?
in the house.
In the building.
Oh boy, this is fantastic. Boy. 2 for 1.
Talk about
Oh, well, that's what I was saying. I'm like, you got to get me, and then you got to get Marcus, and then you got to get us both together.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's update the audience real quick here. The other individual who is joining the call with us potentially here is Marcus Sims, another individual that we both met and that RJ knows quite well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he's the reason why we all know each other. Mr. Marcus himself. I mean, he's the connector.
That's great. All right, so
back to poker. What do we?
Yeah, you're going to play
WSOP,
you're going to play in multiple tournaments while you're out there.
Correct. I'm at my specialty is actually Pot Limit Omaha. I've played PLO, which for the listeners is 4 cards down instead of 2. So in Texas Hold'em, you get 2 unseen cards down, and then your community cards, which is like your flop, which is 3 cards face up on the board. Everybody uses those community cards to try and make the best hand. And then you have the turn, which is the 4th card, and then the river, which is the 5th card. So in PLO, it's all the same with the community in regard to the community cards, but in PLO, you have 4 cards down instead of 2. The interesting thing about that is that when you run hand combos, you actually get 6 different 2-card combinations out of 4 unseen cards, out of 4 cards instead of, just one combination of the 2 cards. So it's literally like 6 times the variance. And when you're quote unquote ahead in the hand, usually at best you're like a 60-40 favorite. So I actually played in 2017. Another guy that was buying action from me, he saw my PLO game. I mean, heard of me playing. We talked about some hands, and he's like, "You're ready for the 10K?" And loaned me. I was out in Vegas, and he loaned me like what was it, $7,000. So my backers bought 30%. I took a loan for $7,000 to buy into the 10K PLO. That's how high my conviction was in 2016, and I finished like 22 out of 400, and that was like a 25K score, but 850,000, I believe, 900,000, and I just genuinely thought I was gonna win it. It was like the weirdest feeling. I'm like, I don't give a shit like how I have to come up with 10K right now. Like, I know my backers want some, but like we don't have enough on the roll to like cover the whole buy-in, and like I don't want to do that to them because it's like percentage wise it doesn't fit into the what we agreed to. So it's still up to my discretion, but I still like just wanted to. I'm like, whatever, I'll just eat 7K. And it was a different time though, because like since then they've introduced like the big blind ante, which really changed PLO tournaments in my opinion, because people now play more hands more profitably, whereas before they were playing too many hands. Because basically, like, the long and the short of it is, the more money that's in the middle, the more you want to fight for it. Now that they used to not have antes, which is basically like, to the listeners, small blind, big blind, and then an ante. And usually each individual at the table would have to put up a small amount for the ante. And then they've since condensed it to now a big blind ante. So it's small blind, big blind with the big blind ante. And the ante just adds more dead money into the middle to fight for. So therefore you should like open up the range of your starting hands or what you decide to like get involved with. A lot of people were doing that with no ante is my point. And so I was able to like check back the nuts, which you would never do in PLO, cash games and shit like that. When you want to deny equity. You don't want to allow your opponents to realize their equity. You want to deny that. And in PLO, it's often winning the pot is the most profitable approach. And, fold equity is where you make your money ultimately, like the equity and you have by your opponent folding their hand. So expand on that later. But like, the fact is like when I was playing those, I played so tight, just nutted hands. And I was busting out people like Rhett Porter. I played with like Eric Seidel. I played with, some just fantastic poker players, and playing those $10,000 buy-ins, you realize a lot of these guys, they have a strategy and they literally stick exactly to it. They have somebody to report to. The vast majority of money in poker is backing and other people's money. So you have somebody to explain yourself to. And that's, where poker kind of differs is like, I get it. You got knocked out. It was bad luck or whatever, but did you make the right decision? And more importantly, what I'm curious about if I'm ever buying action and somebody is like, did you make the right decisions leading up to that unfortunate event? Like, what were the other things that led you into that bad spot?
Right. So share as much as you like, but you're going out there with backers again this year? This is like common practice for you at this point? Yeah.
It's very common practice, yeah. And like the typical staking deal is like, 50-50 over makeup. So basically like makeup is defined as like debt on an accrued basis. So let's say I go out to Vegas, I take a 30K stake. Like last year, for example, full disclosure, $36,000 in buy-ins, 33,000 in cashes, basically like an even year for me. But every tournament I'm playing for $1 million,
Right.
at least it's well into the six figures or higher. So it's a 50-50 on makeup, meaning if I go out there, I buy in for $30,000 worth of events, and then I cash for $50,000. My backer gets his $30,000 before we chop up the $20,000 white meat 50-50. I get $10K, he gets $10K. And I have a 2-page like memorandum of understanding that was put together by Tony Dunst back in the day. So he's him and Mike McDonald, Timex, like those are two OGs in the space. I mean, they put up on a 2+2 form 15 years ago the contract that they used. And I've since kind of morphed that into my own, which what I refer to as a memorandum of understanding. They understand I'm putting up X amount of buy-ins. This is, what I get back 50-50 over whatever, once I'm made whole. And then we're both responsible for our own taxes. And then it gets into things like selling action, and swapping action.
Oh.
And there's so many little facets. It's like if I'm playing a bounty tournament, obviously, like if I win a bounty, it's part of my prize money, but it's not reported. So that's where it kind of gets in the subjective nature of trust too. It's like, do you trust me to win these bounties and be honest about how many I got? And do you trust me that I'm not going to oversell action to this tournament? Like I'm playing a 10K, but I just sold 20K in action. And I just took a dive to put 10K in my pocket. Like, dude, it's like a very it's the Wild West, truly. I mean, it's like you got to know who you're dealing with, and they're not all straight up. And I've been through the ringer with all of them.
Do you normally have multiple backers per year?
No, I only have one backer at any given time. And in my MOU, I basically say, I vow to you, I make a promise to you that I'm not going to be backed by anybody else in this. And I define the period of time, how much money's involved and whatever. So, no, it's very specific. It's very laid out. And then, I put together like a schedule of events. So it's like, by day or by tournament, what have you, I run through. So I have a schedule of events that I know that I'm definitively going to play. I have a couple alternate ones. If I make it deep in one, it may preclude me from playing the next. Yeah. So, it's you got to give some indication of what you're going to do. You have to have a plan going out there, especially as it coincides with resting, scouting,
sure.
There's so much.
Yeah. And any business deal, you just want to level set expectations as much as you can, right?
100%. And you just have to know going into it, it's I'm only going to be playing 10 to 15 events. It takes me I'm going to win 1 out of 100 tournaments. Right. You're literally getting 10 to 20% of my expectation. And then anybody that I do business with, I always give them the option to, renew the contract the next year. If we, because typically if you wind up flat on the year, kind of like last year, you wind up a little bit down or a little bit up or whatever. If it's kind of a mediocre result, I because the person believed in me last summer, I'm not just because this guy wants to give me money or something,
right.
Because you get real close to the event and then everybody's kind of jockeying for action. So it's I try to sell mine well in advance so that I have a plan. My flights are booked. My hotel room's booked. I know what my expenses I know the days off in between, day 1 and day 2 and day 3, and it's all scheduled, workouts and everything. So
yeah. Oh wow, down to the workouts. That's awesome,
dude. You have to. I mean, you're playing in the main event specifically. You're playing 13 hours a day. So I mean,
holy crap.
There's 5 levels a day for the first 7 days. Well, I mean for all the days, but I mean specifically you're playing there's a couple fields. You have a few day ones. You have day 1A, day 1B, day 1C, day 1D. So there's 4 different starting days. And then those fields combine into day 2, day 3. In between days 1 and 3, you get some breaks in between. And then fast forward into day 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are boom, 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 back to back to back to back to back. So if you're completely fatigued by day 3 and you're coming in day 4, you're not getting sleep for another 3-4 days. I mean, 5 levels at 2 hours a level is 10 hours of absolute 100% poker. And then you're looking at a, whatever it is, 90-minute dinner break. And then 15-minute breaks in between every level. So, I mean, by the time you add it up, it's over 13 hours at the casino.
Yeah.
And then how am I supposed to make it back to the room and then study my opponents for the next day because they don't even release I don't even know who's at my next day's table until 3 or 4 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm laying in bed scrolling for an hour, like, holy shit. Like when I was playing in 2015, I went to Secret Pizza with my wife at Cosmo, and it was literally like 4 a.m, and we're getting a slice of pizza at Secret Pizza, and I found out that I was sitting at Antonio Esfandari's table, and I was just like, these are guys you see on TV. Like Marcus and I used to watch this guy's like gambling show with Phil Locke back in the day. They would gamble on anything, and he was just like, he was such a character. He had just won $21 million or something in the $1 million buy-in for the one drop. And it was, surreal playing with that guy. I had him, Vivek Rajkumar, like this pro from Germany, like, all these guys at this TV table. Mind you, like the stuff that I had sent you guys prior to the call, whatever, like it was some old footage I found. Like that was maybe a couple minutes of footage that was. I was under the cameras for 10 hours straight.
Right. So we're at home. We're at home in our PJs, like sweating, watching 45-minute episodes.
Yeah.
That was like meticulously cut together by producers.
Right.
And like this is the reality. Like, are you guys considering playing poker when we go?
I will.
You're gonna play?
Yeah, I'm a big PLO player. I love PLO. So I'm going. When I go out to Vegas, I'll be there like 3 or 4 days before they get there. So I'll hit the PLO hard for those 3-4 days. Cash games, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the way to go.
Yep.
We play this like we have a 5-5 1K or 1,500 cap here in Cleveland, and it's a beautiful thing. Those games get pretty big. The cash games here during the pandemic were just absolutely juicy, insane, wild. Any given night we had 80,000 on the table.
That's unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah. The most I won in a given night, I literally like 2 hands. And this is no joke. It's just like a couple hands go differently. I wanted to run it a couple times, and I wanted to run it one time. I was like insistent on it, and there were a couple reasons why. Like, I'm playing a house game, and it's like whatever. I won't get into the details, but like they want to run it twice, so I agree. I run it one time, I win 70,000 in that game on a Wednesday, and these are contractors. These are guys that like they're carpet layers. They're tradesmen. They'll make 20-30K on a contract in a given week on a certain job, and they want to gamble. They want to play it up, and they might not play the best poker. Let's just face it.
Oh, that's wild.
That's wonderful. So you mentioned 18 days, correct? You're going to be in Vegas for the World Series of Poker this year?
18, yeah. I leave on the 2nd, come back on the 20th, yeah.
So how does the travel work and the planning of the hotels and the cost factor in terms of expenses and things like that?
Well, that's super interesting, and that used to be really good for me, but now it's not so much anymore. Like my prior investor, I don't like to call them backers or stakers. I like to call them investors because they truly are like, making an investment. And, I'm very entrepreneurial in nature to where like I've always picked up my expenses, but if there's something that my backer can do for me. Yeah. So basically like initially my backer, at the time he had 20 horses that he put in the main, and definitely don't want to get into names with this guy. He's a beast. He was probably one of the largest bookies in the Midwest. We'll leave it at that. Had about 20 horses in the main. He never put me in the main, but he would, he would loan me money. He would buy action. I love doing business with the guy. We had a falling out over me not wanting to play like $1,000 satellites into the main event one year and whatever. And so we just got into this like disagreement, and, we left it on, decent terms. He basically told me to F off, but whatever. Not all relationships end well, but he's a nice guy. He literally introduced me like the biggest games ever. I literally and I even told him when we were like having our falling out, I'm like, there's absolutely nothing bad I can say about you. You are like literally the best guy. People love you. It's a guy you want in your corner. And the long story short, with that relationship, he was 7-star 50 times over with Caesars in the top 2% of their clientele. So I was companion, and that was at a time when companion meant something to the listeners. Caesars had a great, 7-star like program, and they've since they don't have the lounges anymore. We used to go get free drinks, free food, all the perks. And now, it's not that, but in the matter of about an hour, he fired $200 bets on my personal card and got me at that time diamond in the matter of hours, not days, and then made me a 7-star companion, and it was a beautiful thing. You Fiji water everywhere you go, front of the line everywhere you go, front of the taxi line when that meant something, and when you're walking into Nobu sweatpants, like, hey, get me the best table restaurant. Like, it's kind of a baller move.
Baller.
Absolutely.
So you're kind of like trying to rely on status to get the room and stay and all that.
I did.
Yeah.
I did, and then you realize you wind up just paying for it one way or the other. So now, like, they know me. I'm in the system with Caesars. They give me like $50 room rates or something stupid. It's like $1,400 for 18 days. I don't have to give them any action. You know, it's like fine, whatever. I'll do whatever I want. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, you're not dealing with a host.
I'm not
guaranteed
really
play with them.
Yeah, all that stuff's just tightened up. It's not what it used to be. I mean, like I said, we used to be at O'Shea's with a $5 minimum bet and 100x odds, and they do 10x odds now with like a minimum $25 bet. It's like, I like craps, but like I don't like it that much.
I miss O'Shea's. I miss old O'Shea's for sure.
Old O'Shea's was shit, man.
That was awesome. We were reminiscing about that football dice game they had for a while.
Ooh, that was a good one.
So you've been out at the World Series of Poker how many times?
I've been on and off for 7 years. Mind you, COVID killed 2. I probably played the main 4 times. So 2 of those were COVID, and 1 year I didn't go out.
All right. Out of all those experiences you've had, give the audience your favorite.
Oh gosh. Probably the first time I was out there, honestly. Like, I was with my buddy Chuck. He came out, and like, I'm sure he doesn't mind me dropping his name. He literally, like, he was magical to go out there with. I got to say, for the first time, he had just spun it up at Pittsburgh. He spun $80 up to like 80,000 or something in blackjack. No, I'm talking like total sicko. Like, he will literally bet his last dollar.
So real quick, you keep saying the name Chuck, and then I've got the intro where I'm talking about Shaquille O'Neal, and all I can think is you're going out with Charles Barkley to all these things. So just so you know, in my head, you're going out with Charles Barkley.
Well, to clarify, it was Shaquille O'Neal, and Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley does happen to be a beastie gambler and come to Cleveland from time to time, and definitely has the blackjack bug. Like, I used to watch him at Casino Arizona when I lived in Scottsdale for 2 years, played Casino Arizona cash games. He used to put your name up on the whiteboard while I was waiting for a poker seat. You know, Chuck, he'd be over there firing $100 hands of blackjack, and there'd be 12 people behind him watching. Like, went back, got my old Suns jersey, had him sign it and shit. Like, yeah, he's a beast. Like, and he's one of the nicest guys ever. He bashes Cleveland like crazy, but you get him out here, he's super fun. He's a good dude. But Shaq,
so he
to that
does
point,
have a Charles Barkley story, just so you know.
I do have a Charles Barkley and a Shaq stories. Shaq shot a commercial for Comcast in my condo at the place we used to live before. So that's why he signed the studio wall and stuff that you guys knew from your visits.
Yeah, it wasn't long ago that they had a little GIF of that on the TNT show. So I saw a little reminiscence in there. Yeah, because he was like DJing in your room or something. That was up just not too long ago.
Yeah, no, he's a beast. He's fun. He is cool. He just called me DJ the whole time and never remembered my name. Hey DJ, what are you doing?
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I was just gonna say best experience. Let's get back to that real quick. Most memorable.
Most memorable was definitely cashing the main. I mean, it's you're walking out of there like I'm dumbfounded. I literally, like, I play my heart out for 5 days, and with like pocket nines against ace king, it comes out like, 7, 8, 10. I'm open ended, like whatever. Like, I have a pair with like a great draw just in case. I'll just never forget, like, that ace hit the turn and a 2 on the river, and I'm out after like feeling like invisible, and I'm just like, this is great. Like, I'm just shell shocked, it's like, I didn't really have much emotion around it. It was just like, I busted a million poker tournaments, but like, the feeling of like going out. And then when I was talking about earlier about like your bad decisions that like lead yourself up to that, it's like, okay, well, I didn't necessarily need to chase the heart on the turn to put me in a position of 15 bigs where I needed to jam the nines. You know what I mean? I could have just flatted the nines or min raised and folded to a shove or whatever. It's like, your mistakes wind up compounding, and it just got me into a spot where I was just like, I didn't need to be in that spot. And you never want to like have their cards on the back for your tournament life if you can help it. There's some value in that. We touched on fold equity earlier. It's like, if I know my opponent's folding 1 out of 10 times, that's 10% equity for me. So if I'm a 50-50 coin flip on just like, just straight odds, like, I got this draw against that pair or whatever, like, okay, fine. But I know you're going to fold it, 2 out of 10 times, I get, an extra 20% equity. Like, 70% to this raise, let's go. So you're just trying to constantly compound positive EV. And, there is an art to it because people are always up to something.
You shared with us an interesting document that I did read, the main event mantra. Can you give us a little bit of how you came to create that?
Man, I sit in my room late at night. I'm kind of, when I'm in that poker mindset, all I can think about is like winning. I don't really care about going out or who's doing what or whatever. I'm just like, how do I make the best decision possible every step? Because what you realize is like poker's a really boring game. You're sitting there for hours. And then you get to a point where your head starts making like, you start overthinking shit and you're just like, you almost think yourself into playing a hand that you shouldn't, or like, you get fatigued and, you might not be making like the best decisions, like in that split second. I'm not saying you're making bad decisions. I'm saying like one split second can ruin your tournament. So you want to like, just make sure, and you don't want to take like an excessively long period of time to make your decision. But I mean, you want to know that you're well rested, you're well hydrated, you're there to play, you're there for stamina. It's constantly making the best decision possible. And you just have to know that like one wrong decision can send you to the showers. And it's like, I don't want to spend 5-6 days playing for millions to just like go out on a dumb brain fart like I did in Baltimore with that king queen hand. It's like, so how do you stay sharp? Well, I don't like to play with my chips. Like I mean, I like to play with my chips. Don't get me wrong. It satisfies my OCD, but like, the method in which you do it, a tell that could be picked up on that. It's like, and I'm not sitting there like a robot, but I mean, there's things that I look at that I get out of people, and I just wouldn't want a really sharp player getting that out of me. So, you just try to keep things consistent. There's like, I'll take it to even like the most nuanced thing that I do. And I take a piss at the end of the breaks because like you're drinking water and you can only drink so much water, and you only get a break every 2 hours. It's kind of a lot like prison. Like you're told like when you can go play, when you go hang out with your friends in the yard, when you can go to the bathroom, when you can do this, when you can eat, when you can whatever. You're on dinner break now. You got to be back. It's like, you're getting bossed around like crazy. You just sign this waiver. They can put you on whatever. They can take anything, cut it up however they want. So in some respects, like you're definitely like under the microscope. And I just don't want to give away and I just don't want to give away anything. I don't feel like I give away a lot, but I can tell you by like going through that mantra, like it's for people listening, it's literally like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And it's like one line at a time, handwritten. So that, there's something about that like registers in my mind, the way that I learn. If I write it down, I see it, I internalize it. And the last thing on that line is have the guts to follow your gut. How often can you look back on so many decisions and be like, that first instinct I got was the right one? Think long, think wrong. It's in sports betting. It's in poker. It's in all of it.
Did you have something?
I kind of want to get to this rapid fire.
Let me ask one more question.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
This rapid fire. One last question. Can you break down for the audience what your schedule looks like from here through the World Series of Poker?
Yeah. So as mentioned, I'm in commercial real estate. That takes up a significant portion of my time. So I'm working, nonstop, morning, noon, night, like traveling, whatever, selling buildings, doing a lot of like restaurant leases, like things of that nature. So, that takes up the vast majority of my time leading up to it. What I do leading up now is I watch the prior year's WSOP, like hand for hand, everything that's filmed, and I see who the players are. I study like end game spots, which are like real critical, most important. And that's kind of how I prepare now. And then I'll leave on the second. I'll go out there. I'll have about like a day of rest, workout, get a good dinner, probably a massage, get a lot of those. And then next day, the fourth, like I register the main, and I typically register the night before. So you go buy your, go change your $10,000 brick in for a receipt, and then carry that little piece of paper back to your room. And you're like, that's $10,000 right there. And the next day go down, plop it on the table, and then we start playing. And then, I'll go down there with a significant chunk of money. And if I lose 10,000 off the bat, which I got knocked out in the third round last year. So it's probably not going to be too hard to beat that this year. Yeah. So, and that was like last year I finished like, I get knocked out in the third round. I play another like $5,000 worth of events. I go deep in the $1,500 closer event, which had like over 2,000 people. I finished like 30th place or something. And, that one paid $15,000, something like that. I had lost, the 10,000 plus other events leading up to it. So effectively a wash, but that kind of saved, that was the summer saver. So that's why we play those. And that's why like Aria runs a daily 2 times a day, $200 an event or whatever it is. You can go win 20, 30,000 in an afternoon and save your summer. And so, I'll go out there with a few $10,000s. And then, if things don't go well, we'll play a few more events, probably 10 total max in that 18 days. That includes rebuys and things of that nature. I mean, there's no worse feeling than just firing into these like re-entries for 1,500 at a pop. And before you know it, 5 entries later, I'm stuck $7,500 on a Thursday night. And I'm like, shit, I just dusted literally like a bunch of the money I just brought.
Does that same level of day-to-day stress and commitment carry into the other events, or does a different vibe kind of then set in for you after the main event ends? Dude,
it's a different vibe every table. I mean, I never know what I'm doing. I don't have like a fixed strategy. I show up. If the table's playing super tight, I'm going to run them over. If they're playing like super loose, I'm going to tighten up and act like I'm splashy, but maybe give some action here or there when it's not a lot of chips, and then take advantage of that later, like whatever. It's like some people are happy to be around. Some people take forever to make decisions. Some people have their headphones on. They don't want to be talked to. It's like anymore, it's kind of a mixed bag. Before it was like very social, and it was kind of like the old guys club, and we were all running around and, we're drinking booze and running around, going to strip club later, but like, I don't know. Now it's like you get this mixed bag of people that are like super studied and arguably too much. And they're just like, oh, well, I have ace king, so it's less likely that you have aces and kings. They call those blockers. Now it's like, yeah, it makes it less likely, but the way you just played the hand versus the last 1,000 hands you played against me, like you have aces here. Like, or at best kings, my queens aren't good. It's tough fold, but like whatever. I mean, but the people that study too much, I don't know, they just kind of talk themselves into bad decisions a lot of times and come up with way more excuses when they lose, which is even more infuriating. But welcome to poker Twitter.
We'll have to get on that.
Right. All right. Well, good luck to you. Let me ask one more question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, please. This is awesome.
We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going for this one. Have you ever been sponsored in any way during the World Series of Poker?
No, I mean, I wore Bart Hansen, who runs Crush Live Poker, CLP. He was doing some like live streaming for us back in the day here in Ohio, in Cleveland. So in Akron, Ohio, we had a RFID table, which is basically like the chips and the cards that they have the readers on the table. So the fancy stuff you see on TV. Well, we had that like 10 years ago. And this dude had a full blown production studio in his house. And then Bart came in to do like some commentary for it. And he knew I was going out to WSOP and gave me some patches. And it was just goosebumps walking into the Rio back in the day. Cause like I got stories for days about Rio. We'll save those for like WSOP recap, or maybe if Marcus jumps on, we'll talk about like some like fun going out stories. But yeah, he gave me a patch. If I went deep, he asked me to wear it if I wouldn't mind. And I did, I obliged. He gave me a lot of exposure back in the day, which helped with like my backing and just having people see me on camera and seeing how I play and whatnot. And so when I went to the Rio for the first time for the WSOP, I'm walking down the hallway and I see Crush Live Poker and all these TVs, and I'm on those TVs playing cash games against like people here in Cleveland. And it was just like, it was so surreal. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool.
Well, you may get a package in the mail from the Good Juju.
Hey, I'll wear Good Juju swag all day. I don't.
What is your address at the Las Vegas?
I'll email you with my address if you guys want to send me some hats, stickers, shirts. I'll wear whatever you want. You can dress me up. Yeah,
that'd be fantastic. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. That's awesome. Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. All right. We want to do one more thing to finish up with you. And then if you want to bring Marcus in for the chat, this will probably wrap up our interview just for the sake of time for the audience. But let me throw a rapid fire segment at you here. Several questions. Favorite casino game excluding poker? Go.
Keno, 100%.
Keno, really?
Keno.
Oh my god! Wow, gee, we talked about craps like 8 times today, Jesse.
I know.
Keno's your favorite?
Yeah, well, you want to hear my little life hack? You go sit at any bar in Vegas, and they got the little, the little red light on the back of the machines
Right.
or what have you at the bar. So you stick your hand back there, you see if it's red, see when it comes up green,
Yep.
what have you.
Yep.
Well, if you get a good, one of those old Game Kings or whatever on the Keno stuff, you play two numbers, and you bet maybe like $2 a card, whatever, $8 bet. I usually start off at 50 cents a card, so I'll start with like a $2 bet, play 4-card Keno, pick two numbers on each card. It pays 15 to 1. You're an 18 to 1 dog, obviously like horrible odds. But if you hit that button X amount of times, blah, 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 given, only hitting two numbers here, whatever, you can effectively kind of like break even, get free drinks. I like,
hold on, let me write this down.
I like Keno for that. Yeah. There's just something soothing about just like hitting deal, and it's just like,
Oh yeah, just like runs through all the cards. Yeah.
Yeah, and after I play poker all day, like I need some brainless shit. I just want to see numbers, you know what I mean? So it's just, for me, it's kind of a way to decompress without like being concerned about like losing a significant amount of money and drinking for free. So that's kind of the sum of that.
I like it. All right, last concert you saw?
Blink-182, the reunion tour, dog.
Oh,
Let's go.
You got a fan over here.
I will be at the When We Were Young festival in Las Vegas this October for Green Day and Blink-182.
Dude, they killed it. Absolutely
alert.
crushed. Yeah.
I am very excited. I have not seen Blink-182 live, and that's a disappointing thing for me.
Overs or unders?
I'm always an overs guy. I always think they're way more capable of like what they're actually capable of. And I think defense is so boring. I never want to watch it. So I guess I always root for the over.
All right, 10 million cash or one blackjack hand for $1 billion.
10 cash, easy. Not a chance. I'm not like running that out a million times. Then what if I have to double down, get out of town?
Good answer.
Who's buying my action?
All right,
you could do a saver bet on that. I mean, you get somebody else involved. You could get creative with that. But I mean, all in all, if it's just like it's 10K cash or 10 mil cash.
10 mil cash. Yeah. Last live sporting event you went to?
Last live sporting event. The spring training in Scottsdale. Went to the Indians and the Giants. It was
Guardians.
awesome. Or Guardians and the Giants. Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah. I definitely want to do the spring training situation. What are you gagging because I corrected him?
I'm gagging at both of you over the Indians Guardians bit there.
Well, okay, so all my swag, like it all still says Indians. I'm not going to buy like another like $500 worth of stuff.
I just added a new rapid fire question real quick.
Let's get it.
Regardless of your personal feelings, whatever they may be with the Indians, the new Guardians team name, yay or nay?
I'm a yay. I didn't really care for it at first because I thought we were gonna get the spiders, so I was kind of like irritated that they didn't go like old school, to be honest. But like the Guardians are on the Hope Memorial Bridge here in Cleveland. About 15 years ago, like me and a group called Idea Box, there were 6 of us, and we actually got the Guardians lit. So GE and all them, they kicked in some money, and we had this like civic minded project to light the Guardians on the bridge. And it's kind of come full circle. Like now the damn baseball team's named after the Guardians that we lit 15 years ago. So
that's cool. Awesome. All right, what'd you say the first time you went to Vegas?
First time I went to Vegas, that was in college, and we were eating 50-cent hot dogs at the Best Western Mardi Gras. Actually, they were dollar dogs, and then we had to walk to the Strip. It was very unsafe. And when we finally got there, we went to Bally's, which is now the home of the World Series of Poker, just changed the name to Horseshoe. We go in there, we each fired $20 each, I think. We hit a 4-number keno for 600. Each walked away with $200.
It's a lot of hot dogs.
There's so many hot dogs. We were very stuffed. And then I go to where did I go? I went to the Orleans with my last $80. I had no way to get home. So I entered into this $80. They had a $60 buy-in. I entered it, won $800, and then went to the old O'Shea's where they had the club in the basement. It was kind of like this, it was Dre's. It was the original Dre's.
Oh yeah,
not in Cromwell, but that was in the original O'Shea's in the basement. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like very like rave scene techno stuff, and I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I lost all in craps that night and had to walk back to the Best Western Mardi Gras after winning 800, taxiing back downtown, then losing it in craps, then walking back to the Best Western Mardi Gras. And I don't even think they had any, like, full disclosure, I don't think they had any water in the pool. It was like one of those super seedy, like 2-story, not really a motel, but 2 stories, no water in the pool. I'm sleeping on a pull out. Like, we've come a long way, boys.
Really.
All right. Last one. All-time greatest basketball player.
Yeah, gosh, Jordan, how not? I mean, after what we saw LeBron on this past one, it's not even an argument anymore. In my personal opinion, that's coming from a guy in Cleveland. I mean, I'm just saying, like, guy's been in the league, is like this, whatever. You got 4 titles, and it's like, I mean, comparatively, like, not a shot. And like, I've never seen LeBron play with the flu, and I grew up with that shit. And like you were saying, like the Craig Elo, Mark Price days, shit like that. I mean, get out of here. Like, not a chance. It's not even an argument, in my opinion, at this point.
I thought he was going to say Craig Elo. With that said, thank you very much, Jesse Howells, for joining us.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah, good luck.
You're the best. Good luck to you at the World Series of Poker.
Right. Well, we'll send the good juju, so hopefully, it pays off.
Dude, I appreciate it. I'll take all the good juju I can get, brother.
Cool, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.